You've been told to watch out for manipulation. You know what it's supposed to look like: pressure, control, obvious self-interest. But the manipulation that actually works doesn't look like any of that. It looks like kindness. Most people imagine manipulation as something crude and visible: a pushy salesperson, an obvious lie, a threat. And those things are easy to spot precisely because they're obvious. The manipulation that shapes decisions, changes relationships, and erodes trust over months or years doesn't announce itself. It arrives disguised as concern, as humor, as helpfulness, as loyalty. By the time it registers as manipulation, you've usually already done what it wanted. So what does it actually look like? And more importantly, how do you see it before it lands? The most important thing to understand about manipulation is that it never targets your conscious reasoning directly. If it did, you'd notice. Instead, it targets the gap between how you see yourself and how you behave under social pressure. Most people have a self-image that includes being independent, fair-minded, and not easily influenced. Skilled manipulators never challenge that self-image. They use it. The technique is called identity leverage. They frame a request or a situation in terms of who you already believe yourself to be, so that compliance feels like integrity and resistance feels like contradiction. I know you're someone who cares about fairness before an unfair ask. You've always been the reliable one before an unreasonable request. I wouldn't ask anyone else before something only you will be blamed for. None of these are neutral statements. Each one constructs a frame where saying yes feels like being yourself and saying no feels like betraying who you are. You don't feel manipulated, you feel seen. There are 4 patterns that appear consistently across research on interpersonal manipulation, and all 4 share the same quality. They feel positive at the moment of impact. The first is manufactured vulnerability. Someone shares something personal or painful, not to connect, but to create an obligation. Vulnerability triggers reciprocity instincts that are deeply hardwired. And a manipulator who knows this can deploy apparent openness as a tool to make refusal feel cruel. The second is strategic humor. A request or criticism delivered as a joke tests your reaction and plants the idea without full accountability. If you object, the response is, "I was just joking," and you've now been made to seem oversensitive for noticing. The third is intermittent validation. Praise that arrives unpredictably after criticism or withdrawal is neurologically more powerful than consistent praise. It creates the same reward circuitry as variable reinforcement, which is the same mechanism behind gambling addiction. And the fourth is false consensus. Everyone thinks. Most people would agree. Nobody else has a problem with this. All of these manufacture social pressure from claims that are rarely verified and often invented. None of these feel like attacks. They feel like the texture of a normal relationship.
Here is why you don't feel it until it's already worked. The brain doesn't evaluate social information the way it evaluates factual information. Facts go through a slower, more deliberate system. Social signals, tone, apparent warmth, signs of approval or disapproval, go through a faster system that produces conclusions before conscious reasoning has time to weigh in. By the time you're aware you've just said yes, the decision was made several seconds earlier by a system that prioritized social comfort over accuracy. This is compounded by what psychologists call the halo effect in reverse. When someone has been consistently warm, generous, or funny towards you,
Your brain applies that positive framing to their behavior even when individual acts contradict it. The overall positive signal drowns out the specific negative one, which is why people so often describe looking back at a manipulative relationship and saying they saw signs they didn't act on. Not because they were foolish, but because the positive signal was louder, and the brain weights signal's strength, not accuracy. 3 things change how early you see it. First, track patterns across time, not individual moments. A single moment of manufactured vulnerability, strategic humor, or identity leverage is almost impossible to distinguish from the genuine article. A pattern across multiple interactions is unmistakable once you're looking for it. Second, notice how you feel after conversations, not during them. During a manipulative interaction, you often feel engaged, seen, or obligated. These are the desired effects. After, when the social pressure has eased, you sometimes feel vaguely off, slightly drained, or quietly resentful of something you can't immediately name. That post-conversation feeling is often more accurate than anything you experienced in the moment. Third, watch for accountability asymmetry. In relationships where manipulation is operating, mistakes and obligations are distributed unevenly. Your errors are held and referenced, theirs are minimized or reframed. Your commitments are tracked, theirs are renegotiated. That asymmetry, sustained over time, is one of the clearest structural signals that something other than good faith is operating. So, back to where we started. Manipulation doesn't look like manipulation. It looks like someone who understands you, someone who makes you feel seen, someone who seems to need exactly what you're able to give. The tells aren't in individual moments, they're in the pattern, the asymmetry, and the feeling that lingers after the door closes. Once you know what you're looking for, you can't unsee it. If this changed how you'll read the people around you, subscribe. Every week, Mind Decoded breaks down one more thing about human behavior that almost everyone gets wrong.
And if you want to go deeper on the way to read people, that video is right here.